Hi guys, week 11 here on the Immense Anon channel. This week I think we're all doing the prompt of what triggered our emetophobia and what beliefs, events, and traumatic experiences ultimately triggered our, fear of vomiting. I'm not quite sure exactly the science and the reality of what happens to me psychologically that made me so terrified of throwing up. I have theorized in my downtime several times, like, why I think that I ended up becoming so afraid of vomiting. And ultimately, when it comes to beliefs, I sort of associate vomiting with, like, feeling extremely nauseous. And nobody likes feeling nauseous, but, like, I would rather be stabbed in the foot or like break my arm than feel nauseous, because nausea really sucks, and I sort of acquaint it with feeling like I'm dying, because when you feel sick, you just like feel so horrible, and I just sort of view vomiting as the grand finale of feeling nauseous, and it's just something that I don't want to accept, or something that I just don't want to happen, and I don't know why exactly. Another belief I have about that might have triggered my emetophobia is that vomiting is extremely disgusting. Well, I mean, vomiting is pretty gross, but vomiting to me is extremely disgusting, and I almost view it as unacceptable because I don't want myself doing it. And I've seen, like, people around me getting sick and throwing up, and they just look so sick, and then, like, sometimes they end up, like, it looks like they embarrass themselves, or, if you get caught in the wrong moment, or you get sick, like, at work or at school, and then you just, like, if people, like, throw up and then you see it, and it just grosses everyone out, and I don't want to embarrass myself, so I guess that's maybe one part of it. Another belief I have that might have triggered my emetophobia is, like, I sort of view vomiting, I know I've mentioned this in past videos, but I view vomiting as, like, a foreign experience to me, because I've only thrown up, like, a handful of times in my life, and I mean, like, people, like, cough, know how it feels to cough or sneeze, or, like, bodily responses, or, like, reflexes like that. Most people know what that feels like. But I guess, for me, I don't really know what vomiting feels like. I vaguely remember from the last time I got sick 2 years ago, but it's just, vomiting's not something normal for me, and I'm kind of afraid of my body doing some sort of reflexive, like, reaction, with my body. It just makes me feel out of control, and I don't know how it feels, and it just kind of scares me, because it's sort of like the whole fear of the unknown type of deal right there. So yeah, another belief I have that might have triggered my emetophobia is that, like, I haven't vomited much in my life, and I don't really know what it feels like, and I'm scared of what it might feel like, and I don't know how to mentally prepare myself for it. And I sort of also, another thing that might have triggered my emetophobia is that I sort of dramatize the negative aspects of being sick and throwing up. Like, I guess maybe not normal people don't like it, but I just sort of, like, dwell on the negative aspects of it, of, like, how horrible it could be, and how out of control I'll feel, and how scary it's gonna be because I don't know what it feels like, and stuff like that. It might sound silly to non-emetophobic people, but that's how I feel. In terms of events that might have triggered my emetophobia, well, the first time I ever got sick and threw up a lot was when I got some form of stomach virus when I was in kindergarten, and I know I've mentioned this in past videos and sort of, like, dramatize how awful it was, but in reality, when I experienced the stomach flu in kindergarten, I wasn't afraid of it. I didn't think it was horrible because I didn't have any mental predisposition to hate it. But now I feel like after that experience, I've witnessed, like, people getting sick here and there in my family and in school and classrooms and stuff, and people would get sick and throw up, or I'll see, like, puddles of vomit at school or in the hallway or something like that. And it just really repulsed me, and it reminded me of when I got sick with it, and just made me realize that I don't really want that to happen again. And I guess my mind, psychologically, I take that to the next level, and I'm sort of like, I must avoid it at all costs. I sort of maybe this phobia I have is like some sort of terror of death, but instead of it being death, I'm just really afraid of vomiting because I associate vomiting with feeling like deathly nauseous and feeling like I'm dying or something like that. Another thing that triggered my emetophobia is like, okay, sorry for talking really fast, but after my kindergarten incident with the stomach flu, I wasn't like getting panic attacks all the time or anything. Like I got my first panic attack when I was like 19 or 20. But prior to that, I was just really afraid of vomiting, like if the situation presented itself in front of me. Like if I felt sick or if someone in my family was sick, that I would sort of like freak out a bit and like not be able to focus on anything for the rest of the day. But it wasn't haunting me on like a daily basis where I was like washing my hands or doing all these ritualistic things to avoid, like, you know, as a response to my fear of vomiting. But what really triggered my emetophobia was probably about 2 years ago when I started, you know, I didn't live with my parents anymore. I was living with my husband, and I was starting to like work more and be off on my own, and I ended up, you know, working in several restaurant or food service positions, and a few times I ended up working alongside somebody who was like really, really sick and throwing up and like running back and forth to the bathroom, you know, and like that just sort of like, in a situation like that, it makes me want to escape because I'm really afraid of catching the illness they have because I don't want to vomit. And I just sort of think in my mind, it's like, I have to stay away from them. I cannot catch it. I don't want to be around that. I don't want to have to vomit because I don't know what it feels like and I'm scared of it and I don't want to feel deathly nauseous. So what I ultimately exacerbated my emetophobia was, I guess, working in restaurant positions and working around sick people and me being really, really afraid that I'm going to catch it. And sort of like a trigger like something like that, it makes me think like, what if there's other restaurants that I've been going to where people are sick and handling my food? What if I get sick from that? And what if that sick person like went to the Walmart down the street and like touched this thing and then I touched it and then that means I'll get sick. So it's sort of like those little incidents that sort of happened kind of frequently in my first year of you know, living out on my own, sort of took my fear, like, you know, my apprehension of nausea, it just took it to a whole other level where I started to obsess over it and think that like there's dangerous stomach viruses and things that can make me vomit, just like basically being paranoid and thinking they're everywhere. But in reality, they're not. Like, I'm starting to see that, but what ultimately like made my emetophobia really bad was just scares and incidents like that where people would get sick around me and I'd be terrified that I was going to catch whatever they have and end up throwing up and not being prepared for that. So yeah, and in terms of traumatic experiences that triggered my emetophobia, I guess I had my bad memories of throwing up as a kid, and then I have all the bad memories of seeing people get sick around me, like when I was in, you know, like school and stuff, and then people would end up like looking like they're making fools of themselves, or like that they're, you know, they're feeling so sick and so nauseous, you know, basically feeling like they're dying, and then they throw up, and it's really messy and it's gross, and then everybody sees it, and some people like jeer at them, or like, you know, make remarks like, oh my god, that's so gross, oh my god. And I guess ultimately I don't want to be that person who gets sick in front of a bunch of people and embarrasses myself and like repulses people. And I guess maybe it's sort of like that whole social humiliation thing in conjunction with the fact that I sort of feel I fear the unknown sensations of vomiting, and I guess maybe that's why I'm afraid of vomiting. I know it's kind of stupid, but I'm working on like this 12-week program thing that's supposed to like help emetophobic people, and I think it's working a little bit, but in hindsight, like, I'm still emetophobic. Maybe I'm not as bad as I was a month or two ago, but yeah, essentially those are the things that I believe triggered my fear of vomiting. And I wish there's a way that I can do it somehow, but I guess there's just certain psychological aspects that made me emetophobic. Also, the fact that I'm sort of anxiety prone in general might have like helped with that, helped me become emetophobic, and also like I'm sort of a perfectionist OCD type of person, so maybe that whole like obsessive thought pattern thing sort of glued itself to my phobia and made it worse that way. I really don't know, because I'm not a psychologist, but I do like to theorize, and yeah, that's it for me this week. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you guys next week. Bye-bye.